right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Cox?
Hello. My name is Dr. Dawn Cox. I have a doctorate in educational leadership and management, and I've worked for the Linwood Unified School District for 20 years.
And hello, my name is Joy Cox. I have a master's in education. I've been working at Palm Springs Heights or the Palm Springs Unified School District for about 10 years, but overall I've been teaching for about 21 years. But guess what? We are not alone. We have two wonderful moderators. Will you care to introduce yourselves?
Good morning. I'm Shane Hagar. I'm the principal of Rancho Mirage Elementary. I'm currently working on my doctorate in educational leadership, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, and we're glad to have you.
Good morning. My name is Joaquin Galeano. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I work for the mental health department for PSUSD. Great to be here with you guys.
And we are so happy to have such wonderful moderators. And we also have a wonderful translator. Do you care to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Julianna Rodriguez. I work as an office technician at the Palm Springs Unified School District for the ECE department. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and we're so glad to have you. And we're having issues with our translation. So this is going to be a mixture of English, Ebonics, and a little bit of Espanol, Spanglish, but we're going to try to do the best we can. Speaking of doing the best we can, Dr. Cox, we have some codes of conduct that we will like to go over with you all. Number one, please respect other people's opinion. Dr. Cox, you want to speak on that?
We just want to make sure that this is an open forum where everybody can share their thoughts without being judged or ridiculed or even expressing thoughts that might be considered ignorant. So we just want to respect everybody's input.
And having said that, number two, numero dos, feel free to share your thoughts and views. How else do we learn how other people feel if we don't know what you're thinking? So go ahead. Numero tres, number three, we can agree to disagree. Come on, Americans. This is something we have to learn on. I'm telling you now, you all are not going to agree with everything I say. Dr. Cox, do I always agree with what you have to say?
That is correct. She does not.
Right. And that's okay. But I'm hoping that we can talk about this topic that affects probably everyone in this room. And number four, numero cuatro, you might hear some uncomfortable terms that are not PC. So I'm going to ask that you just pray for me. Don't get angry at me. This does not necessarily reflect our opinions, right, Dr. Cox?
It doesn't reflect our opinions, but it reflects a type of culture that has been adapted that may or may not be appropriate.
Right. And so we have to talk about it, right? All right. So having said that, I want to start off with the picture of this young lady. So the question is, who is she? La pregunta es, ¿quién es ella? Who is she? Pues su nombre es Yalitsa Aparicio. That's her name, Yalitsa Aparicio. Do you guys know her? Put it in the chat. Have you heard of her? Have you seen her? What do you know about her? Moderators, what are they saying?
No responses yet.
Okay, so
She's an
that's okay.
Indigenous American actress.
Okay, all right. Yes. All right, so we have a little bit of
people. I've not heard of her.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Well, for those of you who don't know,
she's an actress.
Okay, this is Yalitsa Maricio. She is an indigenous American actress from Mexico. She is best known for her film debut role in Roma. This was back in 2018. Now, if I'm not mistaken, she's the first indigenous American woman to be nominated for an Academy, and she's the second Mexican woman after Selma Hayek, okay? Now, after she did her performance and was nominated, well, let me share with you what happened, Dr. Cox. There was a Mexican TV network criticized for a brown-faced parody that they did of the Roma star, Yalitsa Aparicio. In particular, it was Giga Rosales. She posted pictures of herself on social media wearing brown skin, so she darkened her skin, and she put on this fake nose to sort of exaggerate the size of her nose. The question is, Why, Dr. Cox? Well, I'm sure you're wondering that. I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering that. But I'm going to argue, you don't have to agree with me, that, ladies and gentlemen, when we think of telenovelas, las telenovelas que vienen de México, de Venezuela, de Argentina, don't we often think of stars like the ones we see on the left? For example, we have here Kate del Castillo. She's very pretty, beautiful woman. I'm not taking that from her. Or how about Gabriel Soto? Que guapo él es, right? Isn't he handsome? They're beautiful. The young lady below, beautiful blonde hair, beautiful colored eyes, light skin. They're quite beautiful. And if you turn to any telenovela, any time of the day, these are the type of actors you'll see, whether they're Venezuelan or Mexican, Brazilian, Argentinian. The question is this: ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? Why? Why don't we see more Afro-Latinas like Lupita Nyong'o? Yes, she is from, her folks are from Africa, pero nació en Mexico. She was born in Mexico. Why don't we see more indigenous women on telenovelas like these ladies? So, Dr. Cox, the question is why? With that in mind, while you're talking, Dr. Cox, I would love for you all out there, put in the chat, why? Why don't we see more Afro-Latinas? Why don't we see more indigenous Latinas? Dr. Cox, what do you have to say about this?
Well, you know what? I think we are looking at the fact that what is popularized in social media, what is considered socially acceptable, what is considered visually or aesthetically pleasing. And so they're catering to that audience instead of showing a variety of diversity across the board. That's what I'm thinking.
Well said. Hey, our moderators, what are they saying in the chat?
They want to appeal to a wider audience.
Okay. All right. So they want to appeal to a wider audience, even in Mexico, even in Venezuela, even in Argentina or Honduras. Anything else?
The producers may be casting folks that have lighter skin.
Okay, so we see that perhaps those are in power who are making decisions on who goes on television have to look a certain way. Well, then with that in mind, Dr. Cox, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to jump straight into it. Dr. Cox, ¿qué es colorismo? What is colorism?
Well, colorism is a term believed to be first coined in 1982 by Pulitzer Prize winner Alice Walker, and was defined to mean the prejudicial or preferential treatment of same-race people based solely on the color of their skin. It is not considered racism, although there is a clear relationship between the two.
Right. And I think the key thing that I want to focus on here, ladies and gentlemen, this is prejudicial treatment within the culture. Let me say that again, within the similar culture. So if you look at the situation with Yalitsa Maricio, it wasn't Black folks giving her a hard time, and it wasn't European Americans giving her a hard time. It was Mexican folks giving the hard time. How dare you? And excuse my language, I know this is a bad word, but I feel it's necessary. One of the gentlemen, I remember reading an article, he was a well-known telenovela actor, and he referred to her as a, quote, pinche, I know that's a bad word, India. Why am I cursing? To show you the level of anger that many of the Mexicans had toward her being nominated. So where does this come from, Dr. Cox? And ladies and gentlemen, we would argue it has a lot to do with colonialism. So while colorism has roots in slavery and colonialism, it has carried over into mainstream popular culture as well. So Dr. Cox, I want you to take a look at this social class. Wherever the Spanish, let's look at the Spanish, but I'm arguing probably the French did it, the English did it as well. This is called la casta. Have you guys ever heard of it? La casta, like a caste system? So Dr. Cox, if you look at that pyramid, at the very top are the peninsulares, right? These were those Spanish people who were born in España that came to the New World. Underneath the peninsulares were the criollos, okay? Yeah, they were still Spanish, their parents were, but they were born in the New World. So you see already at the top, those born in España, then those who are from those born in España. And remember, not classy, I'm sorry, I thought I was in class. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, when the Spanish came over, they created a new group of people called Mestizos. For those who don't know, Mestizos are a mixture of the European with indigenous. You got this new group. What do we do with them? Well, they're not quite as high as Spaniards, but they're not quite at the bottom, so they're mixed. Below that, we have the mulattoes. Or mulattoes are those of African ancestry mixed with European. They're not as bad as the negros or the Africanos. They got a little bit of European in them, so they're better, not as good as mestizos. And below that are the indigenous, toward the bottom, and who are at the very bottom, Africans. Now, Dr. Cox, I would argue that it's not necessarily per se that dark skin in and of itself is something inferior, but this was a way to maintain power, to maintain those people in a working position so that they don't think they can go up. And once the Spaniards and the French and the Dutch and the English planted that seed, that's it. It's a wrap. People bought into it. So remember, colorism, you're dealing with people of the same race, same culture, looking down on on others based on their color. Dr. Cox, thoughts?
Well, you know what? I think that now that we understand the origin of this what has been mainstreamed into society, we can now look at not just the foundational origins, but now we can look to ourselves to see, is this something that we may or may not do and not be aware of it?
Right. So speaking of being aware, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go around the world. Let's take a look at what colorism looked like in the Asian culture. We looked at it a little bit in the Latino, in particular Mexican culture. Let's take a look at it in the Asian culture. Here's a trivia. Get ready, moderators. Here's some trivia from India. Which is the highest grossing beauty product? So once again, which is the highest grossing beauty product in India? Is it A, permanent makeup? El maquillaje permanente, right? Permanente, acuerdo que sí. Hair extension, como lo que yo llevo, like si quiero crecer, no puedo crecer mi pelo muy rápido, entonces yo llevo extension, like pelo falso. Henna tattoos, like what you wear, and or none of these. So put it in the chat. What do you guys think? Let us know, moderators. What are they saying?
Permanent makeup, hair.
Okay.
D.
Permanent makeup. Okay.
Lots of these.
Okay.
Lots
All
of
right. What do you think, Dr. Cox? Do you think it's permanent makeup or hair?
I actually think it's none of these.
Really? And guess what? She's correct. None of these. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry to bust your bubble, skin bleaching cream. Yes, the market, which includes creams, face washes, so if I want my face to be lighter, even deodorant. You know how sometimes the darker people underneath our armpits were a little darker? Yes, you can bleach your armpits. And I didn't put it because my sister told me not to. There are other parts of the body you can bleach too. Who knew, right, Dr. Cox?
I did.
Okay, well, you do. Ladies and gentlemen, it's estimated to be about 270 billion rupees, that's the currency in India, but $4 billion. And it's growing steadily. So you see advertisements like this in India where you have a brown-faced young lady. If you use the skin bleaching cream, ultimately you'll have fair skin. I'm just curious, how many of you all have heard of skin bleaching cream? I would love to hear what they're saying in the chat. Have you heard about it? Did you know it existed? Any of you? What are they saying, Joaquin?
Say that, hold on. I keep saying yes, a lot of yes answers.
Yeah.
Talking about skin lightening.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Lightening.
Yeah, so they've heard of it.
Common denominator.
Oh, wow.
All right, now I want you guys to pay attention to some of these names. Dr. Cox, what are some of the skin bleaching cream names you grew up hearing?
Natanola bleaching cream, ultimate whitening cream.
The ultimate, right? You want to be the
Yeah.
ultimate. Oh, how about Skin Success? Don't you love that name? If you want to have success, you need Skin Success. So what message does that send? Or how about this one, Dr. Cox? Fair and Lovely. No, not to be mixed up with Dark and Lovely. It's Fair and Lovely. If you want to be lovely, you need to be fair.
Yeah.
Right?
And then who told them that?
Yeah.
You know, where did that concept come from?
And we know that that was definitely established by when colonialism took place. They established their concept of beauty. And take a look at this picture. You have a young lady willing to bleach her legs so her legs will look fair and beautiful. But let's talk a little bit about this skin cream, you guys. Dr. Cox, what do we know about skin bleaching cream?
Skin bleaching is the act of using steroid and chemical containing products to lighten the skin. Hydroquinone and kojic acid are often used in skin creams.
So we see throughout Asia, India, the Philippines, many other parts of Asia, you have women risking using kojic acid and hydroquinone on their skin to achieve that fair and lovely look. Now, despite doctors' warning, your skin might turn too dark. I know this might be a little graphic, but I need you all to see to what extent women are willing to go to lighten their skin. It causes the skin to thin, there's scarring, kidney and liver damage. If you're a pregnant woman and you're carrying a baby, it can cause abnormalities to the child. And another thing, Dr. Cox, for those people making skin bleaching cream outside the United States, a lot of them are getting mercury poisoning, correct?
Yeah. And I also want to say, don't think it's limited to women. I'm sure that you have men doing it as well.
Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that, Dr. Cox, because I want you all to take a look at the picture on the left. I just typed in Bollywood actors. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about Bollywood, but these were the first images that popped up. I'm keeping it real. They're beautiful, aren't they, Dr. Cox?
Yeah, very attractive.
Very attractive.
Joyce, are you sharing your screen? Folks are not seeing the pictures.
Oh, really? So you don't see men and women of Bollywood?
Are people?
They said they see it.
Now?
Oh, they can.
Oh,
Okay,
no.
they are seeing it now. They are seeing it now.
Oh, no. Let me try it again. I'll try sharing again.
Can you find out at what part they weren't able to see it?
Let's try it again. Thank you for being patient.
Yes, they are seeing it now. They are seeing it now.
Okay. Can you all see it now? Yes or no?
Yes, they said yes.
Yes.
Okay, so remember the doctor's warnings? And like I apologize for the graphic pictures, but I want you all to see to what length men and women are going through. And Dr. Cox, what were you saying, that women aren't the only one?
Yeah, you're not limited to just women. You have men doing it too.
And hence, how about this next picture? Are you able to see it? Yeah?
Yes, they are seeing the pictures now, yes.
All right,
Good.
So here we go. On the left, ladies and gentlemen, when I typed in Bollywood actors, these are the actors that popped up. On the left, beautiful people, right, Dr. Cox? We agree with that.
Yeah.
But I'm noticing when I think of India, I'm not thinking of just this type of beauty. Why don't we see more Bollywood actors like the one on the right?
And I also want to just throw in there just a thought. When I think of how Indian people from India represented themselves in antiquity, it was never really per se fair skin, right? They were different shades of purple and blue and just absolutely gorgeous. So why is it not being represented here?
Right, and that's the thing we need to look at when we're looking at colorism. So we're going to stop for a moment. Thoughts? What are your thoughts so far about the definition of colorism, what it looks like? Any thoughts at this time? Help us out, moderators. What are you seeing in the chat?
So some people check the newborn cuticles to determine the skin tone.
I've heard of that before.
Wait, what happened? I couldn't hear him,
They
Dr.
check the baby's cuticles to see what shade they'll be, how dark
Oh,
they'll be.
yeah, that's some old school stuff. Yes, Dawn, remember my mom used to do that. Keeping it real. My mother would look at the cuticles of the finger to tell how dark the baby would be. Sure did. Wow, that's interesting. That's old school. Anything else? Any other thoughts?
So as far as directors are hiring Caucasian and Hispanics and Asians, and some people get upset about that.
Ah, yes. And we need to start looking at, are we trying to choose beauty that reflects the diversity that exists in our country? That's something that we need to think about more, right? Thank you for that. So having said that, I have another trivia for you guys out there. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the website Quora, and they have a lot of interesting topics that they discuss. I follow them. So there was a questionnaire in the Philippines, right? So now we're still in the Pacific island area. Why don't you all take a look at this question? And I would love for you to answer in the chat. According to Filipinos, what is the ideal standard of beauty in the Philippines? So once again, in the Philippines, what do they consider to be attractive? So go ahead, put your answers in the chat. Dr. Cox, I would love to hear what they're going to say about this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Fair skin, white pale skin, light skin is the common denominator. Lips.
Okay, lips, okay.
Very good.
Yeah, right. All right, you guys, I think you're in a colorism discussion.
Colored eyes.
Colored eyes, that's good.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you got it. According to Quora respondents, are you all still able to see the pictures? Let me know, Joaquin, if they ever are not able to see it, okay? The number one beauty standard is fair skin and clear complexion. Now, Dr. Cox, we can all agree we want clear complexion, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we don't want bumps and things. But look, before even clear complexion, fair skin. Did the same thing in preparing for this discussion. On the left, I typed in Filipino actors. Take a look at this was among the first pictures that came up. Dr. Cox, we can agree they're gorgeous, right?
Oh, yeah. Very attractive.
Yes, very beautiful, very attractive. What do they all have in common? You could tell that they're something. They got something in them, but definitely the lighter skin, right? The bigger eyes. We could go there too in another discussion talking about hair and eyes, right? But definitely the fair skin. My question is, why don't we see just as many Filipinos like the one on the right? Dr. Cox, have you ever heard of the Ida tribe?
I have.
Now, can you educate them about the Ida tribe? I don't know if you all out there have ever heard of the Ida tribe.
But they're a group of people in the Philippines that are actually indigenous.
Thank you. I don't know how many of you all knew that. These people over here are actually indigenous to the Filipino islands. You don't see them often on Filipino television. Or why don't we see more? Perdón, I'm so sorry. Why don't we see more Filipino actors and actresses that look like these ladies? Why? What are your thoughts? I would love to hear what you have to say. Dr. Cox, you want to sort of summarize while they're writing in the chat?
I'm sorry?
The flip side of this is that some folks in the US pay a lot of money to get tans. They want to look darker.
That is interesting, isn't it? Yes, as women, don't we often go through a lot to look beautiful. It's like on one hand, you have many European American whites who tan to get darker. And then on the flip side, you have darker folks using skin bleaching cream, right, Dr. Kopp, to look lighter?
Oh, yeah. No one is content. Everybody wants the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. So could we say it's all colorism in a way, right? Because I guess the question would be, does colorism always have to go in one direction? Or can it go, is it fluid? Does it go back and forth? Yeah, okay. All right, so if you look at what we've discussed thus far, we have defined colorism. We talked about colorism on the telenovelas in Latin America. We looked at colorismo, colorism in Asia. Here's another trivia for you. Get ready. I'm bringing it home now to the United States, los Estados Unidos. What is the paper bag test? I repeat, what is the paper bag test? Put it in the chat. Let us know, moderator. You think they'll figure this one out, Dr. Cox?
Yeah, notice it says brown paper bag test. Very good.
Oh, sorry, the brown paper bag test. Sorry, I'll fix that. The brown paper bag test. Thank you, Dr. Cox. What are they saying in the chat, Joaquin?
I've never heard of it.
You have to be lighter than a paper bag.
Okay, all right. Okay, interesting. Anything else?
Let me see.
They're really going.
The paper bag test is where you compare your skin to it.
Okay. Boy, this is a bright group of people. Boy, you guys.
Yeah, they're tuned in. They are very tuned in.
You all are woke. Yes. And guess what? So the paper bag test. Dr. Cox, you know about this. Will you share real quickly a story that our mother used to share with us?
Well, you know what? They used to make the comment of, if you are dating a person, you know, make sure they're no darker than the brown paper bag. Make sure the shade of their skin was no darker than that. Right. So that is something that we were familiar with.
Right. My mother told us that all the time. So for those of you who didn't know, let me just educate you. The test was allegedly used to determine what privileges an individual could have. Only those with skin color that matched or was lighter than a brown paper bag were allowed admission or membership privileges. So the test was believed by many to be used definitely in the 20th century by African Americans. We own this. We did this in the United States. Only certain individuals of certain colors could join sororities or fraternities. There were even churches that if you were darker than a paper bag, you could not join it. Okay? So that's in the African American community. Okay? So having said that, Dr. Cox, we define colorism. Dr. Cox, could you read what colorism is again?
We can go back over colorism as the prejudicial or preferential treatment of same-race people based solely on their color.
Right. And we educated you guys on how colorism affects different cultures. In Mexico, in Argentina, Venezuela, you will see the more Spaniard-looking women and men on the telenovelas and commercials, los anuncios, no? And we know in Asia, whether it's India, the Philippines, I'm sure in other parts as well of Asia, that you have colorism where they're bleaching their skins, probably more so in India because they have a little bit more pigmentation. But get ready for your next one. What does colorism sound like? I bet you've heard of these. All right, so Dr. Cox, you're gonna help me out with this, right?
Of course.
All right, so around the world, let's start off. So I'm gonna read one, Dr. Cox will read one. If you've heard of these terms, put a yes. If you haven't, put a no. How about high yellow? Have you ever heard of that term, high yellow? No sé decir en español.
Yes, no.
Okay, what's the next one, Dr. Cox?
How about red bone?
Yes, Little Wayne said he wants him a red bone. Red bone, right. How about, okay, a red bone. Yeah, this is very southern. Red bone es como una negra como del color caramelo, like caramel color with the red hints. We used to say, oh, she has Indian in her. I'm just keeping it real. She has Indian in her because she's red bone, right? How about treated like a redheaded stepchild? I know we don't think about that, but I was talking to Dr. Cox, remember we were talking about this? What message does that send about redheads? If you're treated like a redheaded stepchild, does that mean if you have red hair, you're like
you're going to be mistreated?
Right.
Or you're going to stand out as something negative.
Yes, for my redheads, got love for you. Now, this is where it's a little bit offensive, Dr. Cox, but we grew up hearing this one, right?
Oh yeah.
What is it, Dr. Cox?
Oh, that's why you did the rotation. So I would be stuck with the Dookie comment, right? So this one, dark as an African, or just basically making a bad inference to someone that is dark complected, right? So dark as Dookie, as if it's, and I think it's probably more juvenile with kids in elementary school.
Yes.
That would, just making fun of someone that was dark skinned. Yeah.
And
Black
just
as
to,
night.
yeah, okay, dark as night. Or
Black
you
as-
have, right. Yeah, and so now you
Very
teachers
good, very
know
good.
when you hear that on the grade, any your mama's so dark type jokes, you're aware now. But let's go to the other spectrum, calling someone Casper.
Mhm.
If someone is super
Light
fair.
bright, but not quite white.
Right. Yep. What's the next one, Dr. Cox? Some other things you might have heard. Okay.
Well, you got the caramel, the cafe latte.
Right, right. Ya lo sé que en Cuba que usan, like, they compare, que comparan las mujeres con su café. Como, ella el café negro, like or café con leche means that she's a little lighter.
Cracker.
Right.
Cracker. Okay.
Yeah.
Not talking about Ritz.
No, we're not talking about Ritz. Here's one I often heard. Oh, mira, like when the baby's born and it's very white. Oh, mira, que precioso el güerito, la güerita. Oh, que bonita, because she's güerito, blonde and blue eyes. Versus, oh no.
What happened?
Are you all able? Okay, my internet is unstable. I don't know why. Versus, oh, mira el morenito, like dark. Why do you have to nickname them güerito and morenito? Have you all heard of these terms? Are they still there?
Yeah, some of them are saying yes and no. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry,
yes.
Joaquin. I didn't mean to take over your job. Sorry, Joaquin.
Yeah, I didn't know. I saw that the internet was unstable, so I'm like, oh no. So
No,
you all agree these Huera, yes. Why you have to nickname her Huera? Okay. So once again, ¿por qué? ¿Por quoi? Why? I've heard people say, Dr. Cox, oh, these are terms of endearment. Oh, they don't mean nothing by it. But what message does that send? That you're giving someone a nickname based on something they have no control over, their color. Okay, Dr. Cox, did you want to elaborate on that?
Well, you know what? I mean, it really does go back to, are we still allowing an archaic value system to define beauty? Why can't we be defined by variations? I mean, if you go back to what we discussed about the origins of it, it's archaic. It no longer has relevancy. And even when it did have relevancy, it wasn't valid. It was for a power structure, right? So how do we get out of that? And are we open to learning some things new?
Right. And I think, Dr. Cox, during this presentation, you all, Dawn and I, Dr. Cox and I discussed how we learned some things wrong. We had to fix our mindset on how we view beauty and how we, nicknames and little, terms that aren't so nice that we embrace. So let's talk about, how do we take steps toward healing? Now, for a long time, you guys, colorism has been considered like a dirty little secret, right? No one will come out and say they're a colorist, right? According to Antoinette Lander, I found her very interesting. She's an assistant professor of human development and family science at the University of Missouri. And in her research, she illustrates the need to unmask skin tone wounds. Let me say that again. Some of you all out there have skin tone wounds, regardless of whether you're light or you're dark or in between. We need to start promoting healing for individuals, for our families, and for our communities that suffer from skin tone trauma. And I know you all might not think, oh, I'm traumatized. I think we might be a little bit more than what we think. So Lander offered the following advice to help people heal from skin tone trauma. What's one of the first things, Dr. Cox, is?
Acknowledge that colorism exists through individual, institutional encounters, and that it occurs across races, right? So you want to acknowledge that it does exist. You have to acknowledge it in order to address it.
Yes, I mean, if you want to fix something, we've got to acknowledge it exists. It might not be important to you, but you don't know how your child or an aunt or an uncle growing up was affected by colorism. So you must acknowledge it exists.
And
Okay?
also, Ms. Cox, I would like to jump in and say that it's easy to say, oh, well, this is just what grandmother used to say, or this is just what I've learned. But it's safe to say that in life, sometimes we do learn some things wrong.
Yes. Next, in order to heal, we have to have that difficult conversation about the implications of colorism. That means sitting with abuelita and saying, you know what, abuelita, it's not right when you make different, like you treat one child differently because one is güerito and the other one is morenito. Even in my family, my grandmother treated my cousin Clay better because he was light skinned with red hair than some of the others. It's difficult, Dr. Cox, but you have to have it.
Also, the comments, there was a comment in the chat about comments that grandparents' family make when people start getting darker in the sun. And how
that comment was made to me. I can vouch for that one. Yeah. Oh, get out the sun, you're getting too dark, that type of stuff.
And that's across the board. You see my little Asian kids out there with an umbrella. They don't want to get dark. Black kids, I'm not trying to get blacker, even though they are black, you know? So, but yet the white kids are out there in the sun, you know? So we have to have that tough talk. It's not going to be easy. Next, in order to heal, Dr. Cox, we have to identify and define words that might cause skin tone trauma and be aware of how those words might affect others. I said this before. You think it's funny. You think, it's no big deal. This is all, why is she even talking about colorism? It's no big deal. But maybe to someone else in your familia, you know, it's important. Dr. Cox?
Yeah, and you know, you just because it doesn't affect you doesn't mean it doesn't affect someone else. Just because it's something that was culturally passed on does not mean that someone else is okay with that same you know, comments and references and just being sensitive to that. If someone doesn't like it, they have the right not to like it.
And last but not least, healing. Believe others when they are open about trauma implications of colorism that they are experiencing. I remember when Mariah Carey came forward talking about the struggles of being a biracial person, there were many people, some of my friends, what is she talking about? She didn't have any struggles. She's light skinned, she's next to white, she has all these privileges. But I'm like, hey, you guys, if she's telling her story, at least believe her, listen to her. Listen to what she went through. You didn't go through it, but who's to say that she didn't go through some tough times, right? So you guys, let's try practicing a little bit of empathy. Dr. Cox?
There's a meaningful comment. It says, stop laughing at stereotypes in front of our children.
Exactly. That's true. Don't we often make jokes about it like it's not funny? The darkest dookie joke, the you're so black, or whatever, you got to smile for me to see you at night. Those are the things that we're going to have to be aware of, identify it, call students on it. I do all the time. You do the same in your household. When you see your older son making fun of the younger son because he's darker or lighter, call him on it. Teach him about it.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, as an educator, I have had to correct, again, the colorism in classroom where we have one group of Black kids referring to another group of Black kids as being dark. And I called it out. Who said that this is wrong? Who said that being dark is wrong? And as an educator, I've given lessons on various shades of skin. Who told you that this is wrong? There's nothing wrong with it. And letting people have a different perspective of beauty.
Right. Thoughts? Any more thoughts, Joaquin, in the chat?
Interesting comment about term coconut. White on the inside, brown on the outside. Very sad.
And you know what is so funny? My sister and I, when we were talking about colorismo, it's not just the skin, it's the way maybe people think. sometimes in our culture, usually people of color, I think in the Latino and the Black culture, if you're educated, you're trying to be white. You're trying to be blanco, right? You're trying to be like the white folks versus you want to keep it real. What? So, and my kids do that. So if doing well in school is being white, so what's being Black? What's being Latino? Does being Mexican mean you can't do well in school? They're not being true to your people. You know what I'm saying? I've heard Black and Latino students say that. I'm like, we got to break that. We got to stop that thinking. We all deserve to be educated. So now, having said that, so I want to show you guys this. In the 1940s, because we only got a few more seconds. This is only 2 minutes. In the 1940s, they did a test with the doll test. And what they wanted to show is how segregation affects children, Black children, children of color in the 40s. Well, in Italy, they replicated the same study. So this was done in 2020 in Italy. I hope you can hear it. Check out. Let me know if you can hear it.
No sound.
Oh, it hasn't started yet. Can you hear it now?
Quale bambola è bianca?
Yeah.
Quale bambola è nera? Quale delle due è bella?
Questa.
Qual è quella bella? Qual è quella brutta? E qual è quella buona? Quale è cattiva? Qual è buona? Perché è buona?
Perché ha gli occhi celesti.
Quale è cattiva? Perché è cattiva?
Perché è tutto nero.
E qual è la bambola che ti somiglia di più? Quale bambola è nera?
È offeso. Tu. Perché mi hai chiamato nero? Mi offendi perché altri bambini mi...
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I am Joy Cox. I hope that you all learned something today about colorismo. You know what it looks like, you know what it sounds like, and even today, and that was done in 2020 in Italy, we have babies who are growing up feeling that being darker is ugly. I'm Joy Cox, and
I am Dr. Dawn Cox.
And if you all have any questions, I'm going to put my email in the chat. Feel free to email me.
The survey.
And Joaquin, I know you wanted to talk about the survey and go ahead.
I just posted a survey. It is very crucial, important for us to get your feedback. So please complete the survey. It's going to take only a couple of minutes. It's right there on the chat room. Also, with what we learned today of this amazing presentation, all this pejorative, demeaning language hurt our families, our children. Please link your families with resources, with mental health. I'm about to put the mental health phone number there. So if your children are struggling with this, self-esteem is a major symptom of depression, and all this colorism and all this negativity affect our children. So please connect our families with resources. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you for taking that survey. Thank you so